What is up, Wizards fans? Welcome to another Believe in Wizards podcast. I'm Matt Moderno. Jahadi White will be joining me here in a minute, just getting this sort of table setting stuff out of the way before we bring him in. As always, we're brought to you by Stateside Vodka and their Surfside hard iced teas, hard lemonades, hard deliciousness in a can. It's literally the right time of year, so I hope you all go out and give them a try. And if you want to just get together, talk some Wizards, and have a couple Surfsides, hit me up. We'll maybe we can get a little group outing together here to talk off season in person. Also brought to you by Bet Online. Bet Online is your number one source for all your championship finals info, stats, and scores. Obviously, NBA finals, NHL, all that stuff pretty much over for the year, but Bet Online is still your sports intel headquarters this season, as we have you covered for all your sports wagering needs. MLB, UFC, boxing, tennis, golf, all that good stuff. Still plenty of things to bet on this summer. It's the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info, including live betting options and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your home. Get in on the action today. Head to the website and be sure to use our promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts. Also, just a friendly reminder, we will be doing a live show on 6/22. That's the night of the draft. The draft coverage starts at 8 p.m., so we're going to do the same thing. And when I say live show, I don't mean live in person somewhere. It'll be a live stream broadcast on the Believe in Wizards Twitter account and the Believe in Wizards YouTube page simultaneously. So you can follow along with us. Damo from the Wizards of Gallery Place podcast and Kevin Broom from the So Wizards podcast and Bulls Forever will be joining. They're two of the most prominent people that talk draft in the Wizards community. So get two different perspectives there. I'll weigh in on some stuff myself, obviously. And we'll just talk through what's happening on draft night, what you're seeing. Is it stuff we should be excited about? Do we feel good about what Winger and company are doing for their first draft? All those good things that I think people will want from a Wizards themed perspective. So that should be super cool. We're also going to use that as a way to raise some money for the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. So if there's anything you want to promote during that episode, let us know. There's a link in this episode description talking about or link directly to our fundraising for that. So yeah, it's your opportunity to sponsor the live stream. It should get a lot of eyes on it. So if you have a company or a business or something you're starting off or anything like that that you just want to promote, this is an opportunity to do it. And a a tax write-offable donation is all it'll cost you. So any dollar amount is appreciated. I think this is just an opportunity for us to say, hey, look, we spend all this time talking about this basketball team and on Twitter and Reddit and all these other things. Let's use them productively and say we did some good here along the way. It'll at least make me feel better about all the time I invest in this stuff if I could say something good came out of it. So, just give that a consideration. I know not everybody's in the place to give financially. Totally understand that. But hey, throw us a retweet or send the link to a buddy who might be interested in doing something like that. We'd obviously really appreciate that. And rating, reviewing, subscribing, all that good stuff helps us keep trying to bring you all good content. So again, super appreciated. But yeah, let's get to our conversation with Jahadi White. We're just going to talk through the Beal stuff. And as somebody who's lived this from the player side and being traded and being around people being traded, I think he has some really good insight he can offer into that whole situation. And obviously he knows Brad personally. He's been coaching his son's on a Bradley Beal elite team this summer. So he's been around Brad. So maybe we can get a little insight here on where Brad's at and what the thinking is. We'll see. But yeah, just something for us to talk through. And that's sort of the focus of today's episode, is just dialing in on the biggest thing in Wizards news here. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the coaching changes and personnel moves going on the side here. So that's the plan. Stay tuned and let's bring in Jahadi. All right, pleased to bring in my co-host here, Jahadi. Jahadi, we have a ton of actual stuff to talk about here. I think today it's going to be what seems like the start of an exciting offseason for the Wizards. But most importantly, how you been?
I'm good, Matt. How you?
I'm
How you
good.
been?
Seems like you've been doing some traveling and some coaching, and how's that been going?
It's been going nonstop. I need a vacation from my vacations
There you
that
go.
include basketball.
Yeah.
Right? I need I need some downtime, but I don't have any coming soon. So you
There's
know,
no off season for dad
no,
and businessman and all that
there's no
stuff, right?
off season for summer basketball at
Yep.
all.
Yeah, it's probably more busy than during the year some of the time, right?
It actually is. It actually is.
Boys have been doing well though. They're showing out and having good
Yeah, they've
summers.
been doing good. They've been doing really good. My one son is with USA basketball. My middle son has been hurt for the last, had a major surgery. So he's been out for the last year and a half. And he finally just came back
Okay.
this past weekend, and he had a really good showing.
That's
You
great.
know, so it gives me kind of a gauge to where, okay, well, we can build from. We didn't lose too much. We
Hmm.
didn't lose as much as I thought. You know, um,
Is he going into his junior year or?
my two youngest are going into their sophomore year,
Oh, okay, gotcha.
and then my oldest just graduated high school,
Nice.
and he has a full ride to college in Florida.
Okay, that's
Um,
awesome.
so he's doing good. So he's here this summer too.
Uh,
So
nice.
now I have to make sure like he's prepared
Sure.
physically, mentally to go into college and really, do his thing. So it's one of those summers.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's a lot to manage there, but all exciting stuff. It sounds like.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't trade it. It's what we do, and it's a sport that I love, and just I'm grateful that my kids love it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, being able to share that same major passion is pretty cool.
Right.
One of the teams you've been coaching some for, Bradley Beal Elite. Bradley Beal is in the news here. We've got this whole new front office, and seems like the first order of business, per ESPN and Woj and Shams of the Athletic, is that trade discussions have started around Bradley Beal, and that they're engaging with his agent Mark Bartelstein. And Brad obviously has a lot of say in where he goes, ultimate say where he goes with his no trade clause. So, I guess what's your reaction to this? Just sort of hearing that it seems like a move might be coming sooner rather than later.
My reaction is after hearing Brad Bill's um, speech, his last interview right at the end of the season,
Hmm.
pretty much the writing was on the wall, even with him,
Yeah.
especially him knowing if so first of all, if I'm a player with a no trade clause, I'm pretty much trading myself.
Yep.
No matter what you say,
Hmm.
right? I'm deciding if I'm going to be traded, and I'm deciding if I'm going to be traded,
Yeah.
where
Exactly.
I'm going to be
Where?
traded.
Yeah.
I, I'm actually the GM of me.
Yep.
So when we get the news that Brad may be traded, it's already an understanding that he's a part of
Hmm.
it, right?
Yep.
So from then, it's not so easy just saying that because
Yeah.
there's so
Sure.
many factors involved, right? So now you got to look at not the teams that he would fit on most,
Hmm.
the teams that actually can afford him, because he's not going to take a pay cut,
Yep.
and he's not going to take a pay cut knowing he's not going to be the top guy.
Right. You're not going to go somewhere and be fourth
No matter
fiddle or
what team
something.
he goes to, if it's a good team
Sure.
and he wants to be in there, he's going to be second or third option.
Right. Yeah. Maybe co the guy with somebody is how he's looking at it.
Right.
Right.
So right now, to me, it looks like the best options or the best fits that really want him that may have the money to pay him is Milwaukee or Miami.
Those have been the big two per Brian Windhorst so far. Uh, Philly's been thrown out. New York has been thrown out. We even seen a little bit of could you get him on the Lakers, because everybody always has to have a Lakers trade anytime anybody's
Yeah,
available.
but I don't even know if that would be a good fit.
I'm not sure that they want to do that.
And
Josh
everybody also
Robbins.
is talking about Boston too,
Yeah. So
because he wants to play with Tatum, which means to me, only way Boston will work if you have to keep the three. You got to be a big three.
right, or you trade Brown somewhere else, because the
I
Wizards
don't
aren't
see,
aren't taking Brown back, I don't think.
yeah, but I don't see it. So now swapping Brown with Brad, how does
Yeah.
that work?
I agree. You'd have to get other stuff in the mix to make that. The only reason you do that is if the Brown Tatum situation has become so untenable and they just don't want to be together long term. Like, that's the only way. If unless they've like totally out on each other, I can't see why you would do that
But,
personally.
but Brown and Brad plays two totally different games,
Sure.
and I think Brad would really fit in the Boston
Yeah.
scheme as another addition.
Hmm.
But I don't know. I don't know if you want to trade
Right.
youth out like that.
I wouldn't do it if I were Boston unless I'd get something out of it. I mean, no disrespect to Brad, but Tatum or Brown is a better defensive player too, and he's younger. I mean, he's about to make a lot more money. That's the other thing. If you're not sold on Brown organizationally, he's going to make even more than Brad this offseason. So maybe you think Brad can give you enough of what you need, and he'll be slightly cheaper, although he's older and more injury prone. So I wouldn't do it if I were them, but you never know.
Right. Yeah.
Uh, I did think it was a little funny. We saw a bunch of pictures over the weekend of Brad and Tatum hanging out together, and then 2 days later, you see the report that Brad is now willing to be traded. It's like, did Tatum get in his ear a little bit, or did he just say, you know what, I want what Tatum has. I want to compete for a ring, or is it just a total coincidence? I don't know. I thought the timing was a little bit funny.
I'm sure they talked about it.
Yeah,
I'm
I would
sure
think
they
so.
talked about it a lot. I'm sure they talk about the option of Tatum and Brad playing together.
Yeah,
I know they
they've
would
both said
love
they've
that.
had. Yeah,
But sometimes it's not always great to play with your best friend,
yeah, that's true.
because it's good to be friends, and then sometimes your friend can be your biggest competitor.
Yeah.
Then when when you and your best friend are playing on the same team, right? It can
Mhm.
ruin their friendship.
I mean, we heard Brad and Russell Westbrook wanted to play together, and then it was a short-lived thing. I'm not saying that they were on the outs, but you heard Brad wanted Spencer Dinwiddie originally, and that didn't work out particularly well. So like Westbrook and Harden wanted to play together, that didn't work out particularly well. So
Right.
I think you're totally right. Where sometimes we're boys and we want good things for each other, but the idea of playing together might be better than the actual reality of playing together.
Right. Yeah, because what happens is basketball is a business.
Yep,
Now, just because you're my friend, I can't defer too much,
exactly.
right? And
Yep.
when you come, you're going to be expecting me to defer a lot,
Hmm.
right? Or vice versa.
Yep.
If you look at the dynamic of how the Celtics were set up before, Brown and Tatum didn't defer to each other.
No,
They pretty much played
my turn, your
pretty much
turn, kind of thing.
ISO ball. It was
Right.
like if I have the ball, I'm ISO, and you have it, you ISO,
Yeah.
right? So I don't know if that's always the best situation.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I mean, personally, I wouldn't. I don't know. I don't maybe get the fit, but it could be one of those things where like Tatum's unhappy and maybe they do something. I'm not sure. I think the only way that that works though for real is if there's a third team. You've heard some reporting that the Wizards also want to get up into the top three of this draft, and the only team in the top three that presumably wants to give up their pick is Portland. Portland could use some near term help if they're going to try to make another run at stuff, and they reportedly have put three and Anthony Simons on the table. So, is there a way to send three to Washington and Simons and Beal or something like that to Boston and then Brown to Portland? I mean, those are the kind of things I think probably there's some phone calls about right now, if I had to
Right.
guess. But whether or not you can make that work for three teams becomes really complicated pretty quickly, I would think.
It is.
And so the other piece of this you hit on, I think, is probably the most important thing is Brad with the no trade clause. It's not just that he can reject any trade to any team. He can say, I only want to go to Miami, but I want to go to Miami to contend. And if I think Miami's giving up too much in a deal for me, he can veto the framework of any deal. It isn't just like he picks a destination and then sits back and lives with the trade. If he thinks it guts Miami and he doesn't want to go to a team that now can't win it, he can just say no thanks and like let them continue to hash it out. So he could really drag this thing out and make it ugly for teams, to get him if he doesn't want to go there for exactly what he wants to go there for. So
Yeah.
that's the biggest sticking point.
That's what I'm saying. He gets to GM his own deal.
Right,
And
exactly.
his deal, he's literally the GM,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
He, he's the winger,
Yeah, exactly right.
right?
Michael Winger is just there to sign the paperwork at the end.
Everybody demotes a role.
Yep.
Winger goes to assistant,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yep.
Assistant goes to right. Everybody demotes the role because they can
Yeah.
listen. All Brad can say, look, this is what I want. This is who I want to go to. This is what I want it for. I do
Mhm.
not want to lose these players. Make it happen.
Yeah, I want to go to Milwaukee, but I don't want them to give up Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday. So find another way to make it work. Like,
Right, make it happen. If you
um,
don't make it happen, see you next year.
I think that's the one nice thing about all this. Like we talk about, Brad could make it messy with the new trade clause and stuff, but I also can't see a world where Brad goes out of his way to like be a distraction. So if they can't make a deal work, he's not going to be the asshole that sits here and like, rocks the boat or is a dickhead in practice until he gets traded. Like I don't think he has that in him.
Well, one thing Brad will know is, and especially top players, right? If
Mhm.
you've been the main face of a franchise, one thing you know is how they feel now,
Sure.
right?
How
So
the team feels
I
about
don't
you,
want to be
right?
I don't want to be playing for a team next season that have to settle with me
Yeah,
being
that's fair.
right.
Yep,
Yeah, you're not going to get the best out of me.
sure.
I'm not going to get the best out of you as an organization.
Yep.
My what I want here and my demands here pretty much will fall flat, fall on deaf ears now.
Hmm.
So he knows that also going into next season, like, hey, I gotta play
Yeah.
ball a little bit too,
Yep.
and I gotta make wherever I need. In the end of the day, Brad knows that I have to be somewhere I want to be
Hmm.
next year. Be happy somewhere I'm effective, somewhere where a team or I can play for a ring. But but also I have to be somewhere.
Yep.
Right? I
Yeah.
can't be. I really shouldn't be on the Wizards next year.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be. Then I would be doing a bad job of being a GM myself. The no trade clause will actually hurt me more than help.
Yeah. That's fair. That's a really good point too, and I think that's maybe where if you're the Wizards, you get a little bit of leverage back. Where like if you've had that combo with Brad, it's clear he's okay moving on, and you've made it clear you're okay moving him on. If you can't find a deal that works for him, or he does veto all these trades that are reasonable to you, you can just say, okay, cool, we'll go into next year and we'll work this rebuild out. We don't have to rush to do a deal. This is why I never believed the like, oh, we're going to immediately do this before the draft next week. Like this is too big a deal to pull off in too quick a time frame. Maybe it happens still before the season. Maybe it's a month into the season. I don't think he's here long term, but at the very least, you're the Wizards, you can push back and say like, all right, sorry, we're not trading you for nothing. So if you don't like any of the deals, then sit tight and then you hope that Brad's like, okay, I need to move on and I'll be accepting of a deal that I wouldn't have taken a month ago.
Yeah, they can wait them out.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, who's gonna play the weight line game the longest? Because at the end of the day, this is your career,
Yep.
and that's the game. Look, we're in our positions already. All
Hmm.
right, and we in our positions we do have to make some moves and we have to make impact.
Yep.
But if they let him know we have the luxury, it's not like that we have to make a exciting team to next year.
Exactly. That's
Right?
exactly
We're
right.
in a rebuilding phase.
Yep. Whether we
Right.
do it now or December or next
Right.
September
We're
or whatever.
rebuilding. So
Yeah.
we have a little more, we have the luxury of time on our side,
Yep.
which
Brad
he
doesn't.
don't.
Yep.
Right. So
Yeah.
that's where their leverage is.
Hmm. Yeah. I think that's huge. And that's something I haven't heard from any of the ESPN reporting. Like you've had Brian Windhorst say that he thinks Brad Beal will get traded between now and next Thursday. And he said he thinks people are going to be very surprised at the price and how potentially low it's going to be for the Wizards because his contract is so unattractive. He thinks like the moves that ESPN proposed, he and Bobby Marks, it was basically the Wizards trading him to dump salary. So like one of the ones they threw out was Brad for Tobias Harris, Furkan Korkmaz, and a 2030 first round pick that would be protected. Like if I'm the Wizards, I'm not doing that. Like I'm not in a hurry to give Brad away just to have cap flexibility. If I'm already going to rebuild, I don't care what my cap number is right now. Like I've got to spend the money. I wouldn't be in a rush to clear my books if I'm, you know what I mean? Like it just, I don't see the value of that
Kind
for
of agree
them.
with Brian. Like I think for if you hire with the hiring they have,
Sure.
they pretty much hire three GMs,
Yeah.
right? Which is kind of unheard of for an
Sure.
organization, right?
Yep.
So which means now you have three impeccable minds who've been doing this.
Hmm.
What helps them more? flexibility and flexibility with salary, right? Just a free cap space.
Sure.
Or I think, yeah, if I get another great superstar for Brad, great. But if I have time and money, now we can do what we want to do.
I just can't see a world where they wouldn't do this for some amount of draft capital. And I don't know what a 2030 pick does for them.
I agree. I agree with draft capital. Yeah.
Like now, if it's a salary dump plus some draft picks, and then the money is just to free up the books and make the numbers work. Okay, great. Or you're taking back a bad contract to get more draft capital. I get that too. I don't get just the here's a salary dump straight up. That piece doesn't make as much sense to me personally, or at least I'm hopeful they get something in return for it.
I mean, I understand they're going to try to get something in return for it,
Yeah, but they may not.
But just and see, it works the other way around, right? They have time, but at the same time, I can't rebuild my team until I know what I have.
Sure.
I can't even start really rebuilding this organization until I know what I have, right? So until Brad is gone, I literally can't start the rebuilding process.
Yeah, that's right.
So what's more important, the rebuilding process or trying to get draft capital?
Yeah, I mean,
Now,
there's some trade-off there.
If it takes further on to almost the season start before I can get rid of Brad, we haven't even started our job.
Yeah. Well, you could try to sign and trade Porzingis and Kuzma in the meantime and start that way. Try to get some assets for them. You could do, you obviously make your 8th pick next week. Like, there's some things they could do, but I agree with you. He's the biggest domino in all of this.
Right.
I think, like you said, once you get to this point, it's pretty clear, like, everybody's got to move on. There's no there's no patching this thing over, I guess. But whether you've been in this experience directly or seen about it or talked to other guys in it, what's that like where like everybody knows this person is going to be traded? It just hasn't happened yet. Like, is that an awkward locker room? Like how do teammates handle Brad if we go into the next season and he still like hasn't been traded yet?
You treat him the same, but he's not going to be the same.
Yeah. Not
right.
Not locked in at all. Or
he's not going to be as locked in. He's not stop. The people who really aren't close to him, they now become just strangers, right? Because now everything and everybody in this locker room is expendable, other than the people that I became truly brothers with.
Yep.
Right. Now I'm not. You become way more quiet. However talkative Brad was, shut that down by 50%.
Makes sense.
Right. I'm just here. It turns to I'm just here. It's not a good feeling. It's not a. It can become selfish. You know what I'm saying? So it's not a good situation to have Brad there next year. Not for teammates, not for Brad, not for the organization.
I think Wes Unseld Jr. probably gets the brunt of that, like, awkwardness and stuff. How much do you play him? How much do you feature him? Like,
how much does he listen to me?
Right, exactly. Is he going to be ignoring me in practice or what I tell him to do?
If that's the case, how do I run my team?
Yeah.
When the head of the team, my players don't give a shit, you know?
There was that story about when Jimmy Butler was getting traded for Minnesota and going into the practice and like, making a shit show of it. I still don't see Brad doing that piece. But to your point, if he just sits there and he's disengaged, that might just be bad enough. I mean, that's.
Yeah, Brad is a complete professional.
Yeah, I think he will be too.
Yeah. He won't, but it's a way to be disengaged. It's a way to not be a spectacle and just go like create antics and them to know that he don't want to be here. It's not working. It's bad.
I guess, Jahadi, were you ever traded straight up in your career, or did you sign other places free agent wise?
No, I was traded.
Was that to Phoenix or?
Yeah, I was traded to Phoenix from Washington.
Can you walk
And
us through what that's like
I
to be
just
traded?
did. I literally just did.
Okay.
That's really everything I just told you.
That's personal experience.
That's personal experience.
Okay. So they told you we're gonna try to trade you, and then it took a while, and like,
I knew. So the year before I was
mhm.
starting,
Yep.
the entire time from Bernie, no, from Bernie, I think was it when Bernie left? So when Bernie was there, I think I starting at the middle of that season.
Okay.
Then the next year, I was like, oh, I'm guaranteed starting. Then they brought Ike Austin in, and he started. And
Uh-oh.
then I ended up having to work myself back to the starting position from there.
Sure.
So I kept starting. So then the next year, I think I started. Then Jordan came in, I was starting, and I started all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
Then, what was the coach? The coach that came from the Nets came in. Jordan Johnson, light
Uh,
skin, light
uh,
skin,
Leonard Hamilton?
after Leonard.
Oh,
After Leonard and Gar hurt.
geez.
The year Jordan left.
You're it's terrible that I'm drawing a blank on this.
Well, he came in.
Oh,
I hate
Eddie Jordan?
Eddie Jordan.
Yeah, sorry. I didn't know it was him already. I was thinking there was
His,
somebody else in
his
the middle there
name
still.
doesn't stick with me very well.
I don't blame you.
So he came in and we're in practice and, I'm doing what I do. I'm killing everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so not Brendan, Brendan Haywood
Mm-hmm.
came in. And, I mean, he's been playing behind me this entire time. So, and I'm stronger than him. I'm just more physical.
Yep.
So I always been able to, score on him. And, he's a good player. Nothing taken away from
Yeah,
Brandon.
sure. He was still pretty young, and
Right,
you're a more physically developed
right.
dude at that point. You're
So
probably bullying him. Yeah.
I was bullying him, killing him in practice.
Yeah.
And I heard Eddie Jordan say, Brendan, if you keep letting Jahadi do that to you, he's going to take your starting position. This is training camp at this time.
Wow. So he had already just come in and
So
said
I said,
that's the starter without talking to you.
Came in so he came here already with his starters in mind.
Yeah.
No matter how things have been going here.
Yeah. Not what you want to hear.
So from that point on, I was like, I'm out of here.
Yeah. I don't blame you.
I'm out of here. I'm working my way to get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And through that process of working my way to get out of there, I stopped. I mean, I should do everything.
Sure.
I'm not gonna lie. Everything they asked me to do, I wanted to do community relations. I wanted to do this. I was their go-to guy.
Yeah.
And it was just him saying that was so potent and so much of everything. I stopped doing everything.
That's a middle finger directly to you,
Yes, middle finger directly to me without giving me a chance to lose my position.
Yeah.
The difference if you gave me a chance to lose my position.
Sure.
Right? It wasn't you just came in and said, your position is gone.
Or even if he'd have said, hey, Brendan, you're taking yourself out of the running to be a starter.
Right.
Like just, at least then it's an open competition.
Right.
The play will dictate what we do.
Yeah.
So
once that was done, I was done. So, I called my agent at the time, David Falk.
mm-hmm.
Hey, I got to get out of here. And so that process took a while.
Mm-hmm.
And throughout the process, he kept saying, they don't want to let you go.
Okay.
And I'm like, they want me to be a backup. I'm like, in my
GM,
mind,
the GM doesn't, the coach doesn't,
mind, especially at that time, So they want me to be a backup, and they want to keep me as the perfect ultimate backup. No.
Yeah.
So from then on, it's just like I said, just the people who wasn't close to me, I stopped talking to them.
Mm-hmm.
The 50% of them, the vocal person I was, that decreased.
Mm-hmm.
I only would talk to the organization and staff. A trainer, hey, if I need to get my ankle stayed, take my ankle. Yeah, everything just became a blur of force, like just being super engaged.
Yeah, makes sense.
Until I was gone.
I think that's human nature, right? Like, why would I be super invested in something if I don't think they're invested in me?
Right, exactly.
So you tell your agent communicates that to the front office. Does somebody from the front office come to talk to you? Does Eddie come to talk to you about it? Or they just you
They
all know
just
it's
talk.
happening, but you never discuss it?
They talk through your agent, and your
Okay,
agent gives you the feedback.
I got you.
Right. Eddie would never talk to me. No one would ever talk.
So that
Now
was
Brad, different. I'm not Brad.
yeah,
I wasn't on the level of
that's
Brad.
fair. The super max will do
Brad,
that. Yeah.
he's going. I think Brad can kind of walk upstairs if he have to, but I think in this situation,
Mhm.
it's best for them to completely deal with his agent because
Yeah,
this is a tough situation
sure.
to where um, you really, really would have to stay professional, but you have to stay professional dealing with a decision on your career,
Mhm.
right? And you have leverage.
Yep.
So, you know, sitting at that boardroom, at that conference table, if someone tells you something about your career and sometimes the professionalism can lose. You can,
Yeah,
probably won't lose it. So
sure. You're still a person with self belief at
well,
the end of the day, and if
when it's your career,
hmm,
emotions can play a part, and you never want emotions ever to come in your place of business.
mhm. Yeah, that makes sense. I think again for Brad, I expect him to be the guy that goes about his business, and it's easier to do if he's not the one having to have direct combos with anybody. To your point, like if the agent's handling, he could just show up every day and put his work in and keep his head down, and
Right.
hopefully some quiet, reasonably quick resolution. I I have heard anecdotally from people like what a big deal it was for all parties for Brad to break that scoring record and for somebody in the Ted Leonsis era to be, in the rafters with some of this stuff. And Brad will still have his jersey retired here someday or whatever. But I do think that mattered to them, at least at some level. And maybe now you're just saying, like, nah, second place is good enough. Like, we're moving on before
The
then.
fact that he didn't want to do that
Yeah.
says more.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point.
The fact that that wasn't the main thing for he. I mean, he was already gone.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. And there was no ringing endorsement of Wes Unseld Jr. from Brad at the end of the year. It wasn't I'm so excited to run all this back with everybody next year. It was a lot more muted than I think we had seen from him. So at least
Yeah.
that idea was percolating somewhere, if not like totally decided already. Uh, I think this says a lot about this front office too, and what they want to do with this team. Like, I don't think we're in for a swap Brad for another guy, of his stature and try to run it back with everybody else. Like, I think this is a tear it down to the studs kind of thing that we're in the market for here. Uh, have you
I
been?
think they're about to wipe the slate clean and start all over.
Were any of the teams that you were on were you on the front end of a hey, we're gonna do this move? Like, what's that like to be on a player on a team where the GMs are about to blow all this stuff up?
Uh, it's you don't care honestly,
You're just doing your thing.
long as you're doing your job, and hopefully things don't touch
Hmm.
you, and that's really how you kind of look at it,
That makes
right?
sense.
Hey, am I doing my job enough to where I can still be a factor, or they need am I does the role I play on this team so unique and dynamic that even if they blow it up, they still need a person like me.
Hmm.
And that's kind of how you kind of look at everything because you have no control over that at all,
Yeah,
right? Once you've been traded once, you realize you have no control over anything, right? You just do your job and hope you're not the guy.
makes sense.
Because just like when I got traded to Phoenix, I could tell halfway through Phoenix they was about to blow it up. Once Stephon Marbury was surprised he left, and he had a look on the face like I was like, okay,
when
they're
that
about
guy moves, everybody else knows they're in trouble,
yeah,
right?
when the main guy and just don't know it, they're about to blow things up. Just like when I was with the Wizards and Jawan Howard left out of nowhere.
Hmm.
I was like, okay, that's the writing is on the wall. But I feel comfortable in what I've done that I know that I'm not the guy they consider.
Sure, that's fair. it is interesting to note here, just sort of the parallel a little bit. Like the Michael Winger front office in LA was the one that came in and essentially, and I think Blake Griffin has said this directly about Michael Winger. Winger was the guy that said, "We're not trading you." And then he left that meeting. And on the car ride home, he heard on the radio he had been traded. So I think as players, you know that about, like, you're probably doing your homework on all your new front office guys. Like, you've heard that story from other people in the league. That's obviously different with Brad because he has to co-sign any deal, if not make the deal up himself. But uh, like if I'm the other guys on this roster, I'm like, oh shit, these are the kind of people that might just trade me tomorrow, and I might not know about it until it's happened.
And tell you to your face
Yeah.
that you're fine. Almost, I say 70% of GMs will tell you your face you're fine
Mm-hmm.
and trade you at a drop of a hat if a good deal comes along. Even tell you your face you're fine while understanding it's a good deal that's there that we're going to trade you for, right?
Is that because they think you'll say it to your agent who will blow things up if they don't like the trade or try to sandbag the deal? Or I don't understand the value of that. I'd rather players
I
not
think they
think I'm
have
a,
to
a
protect it.
dirtbag.
First of all, they have to protect the deal.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then they know the dynamic of GM to player
Mm-hmm.
is never good.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes GM to agent, right? So, in the end of the day, your agent only knows what the GM and the organization tells. Your agent is not Superman and
Yeah,
can demand what, right? So if your agent, if I have a close enough relationship to your agent, I might, oh, look, this is really what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But if I don't, and it's just business, I'm not obligated to tell your agent anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that's what people forget about agents is they're not pervy, like
They're not in the room making the,
they're not in the room. They're not obligated to the information.
Sure.
Right? They're literally a reporter. I mean, an interviewer. Hey, look, hold the mic and say, look, can you tell me something about my player?
Yep.
Can you tell me what you're just thinking about what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, we think as players sometimes that agents are privy to all the information that.
That's probably what the agents want you to think, right?
Yeah, that's what they want you to think. But so when the player's like, man, he told me I wasn't going to get traded. The GM didn't tell him he wasn't going to get traded. The GM told his agent he wasn't going to get traded.
Mm-hmm.
The agent told him. It's just the middleman.
I'm being self-aware here. One of my character flaws, I'm a petty person. So if I knew a GM had lied to my face and then traded me, I'd be like, F that guy. Like, you know what I mean? And I'd be telling everybody he dirtbagged me. I just think that's like, seems like a bad business move to do that.
I feel like it's a bad relationship move.
Mm-hmm.
But the GM's obligation is to protect the team.
Yeah, that's fair.
And if somehow that trade gets blown up,
right, that makes sense.
It's going to be on the GM, right? So GM has a unique situation, and hopefully you can go through your career being a GM that doesn't have to lie to players.
Sure,
but it's tough.
And I totally get the business move. I just, even if you give a guy like a subtle heads up, doesn't have to be the exact deal, but just like, well, like everybody's on the table is different than, oh no, we would never trade you. Like,
yeah, but I can, as a player, I can make the calls just like you can make the call to the team.
Yeah,
I can make the call to the exact player.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Hey, bro, look, they trying to do this between me and you. If that's the case, let's make it hard on them and make them have to do this.
Yeah, I don't want to move. You don't want to move, right?
Right.
Like obviously having never been traded, I don't know what this feels like. I mentioned Brad's not going to pick somewhere that's not good for him and his family, and that's the benefit he's earned by having this no trade clause. Like he signed that deal, he gets that perspective. What's that like to have to just be like, oh shit, I now have 2 days to totally pick up and move and relocate and find a house and all. I mean, that's got to be terrible.
It's the worst. It's the worst. You try to sell your house back home.
Right.
You
Find
gotta
new
move.
schools, you know. Yeah.
Right. Find schools. Um, there's nowhere for you to stay when you get there. So you stay. Usually, whoever you just got traded for, you staying at his house.
Okay. That's a good idea. It's a good idea, right? I mean,
Or you know somebody who lives who played in that city and they still have a home there. Just rent their house. Like it's like that. You know,
yeah.
I'm staying at the person's house I got traded for.
Right.
Right. It's chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And you try to make the most of it and still be, and then you have to have your best face on for the new team you're going to. So it's a lot. It is a lot. Like trading that first time you get traded is never good unless you feel like you're going somewhere where the grass may be greener,
Sure.
which is not usually is not the case, right? The sun may be shinier, the weather may be better, but you won't know if the grass is greener till you understand how the organization works, how the facilities work, how things work there. Then you're like, okay, the grass is greener or not, right? So just like Milwaukee, like if I'm Brad, Milwaukee would be like could be the best or the worst. Like who wants to go to Milwaukee?
We better be winning something if I'm going to go spend a cold
Like
winter up
who
there.
really wants to go be in Milwaukee anytime? Not even as a player, just as a person in general.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But at the same time, what if the organization is great?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what if they treat their players great? The facility is great, right? That makes Milwaukee great. It makes being in Milwaukee great.
Mm-hmm.
See what I'm saying? So the team, if I get to play with Giannis, I get to play for a championship guaranteed, you know, almost.
Yeah, that makes it all a little more worth it.
All of that makes this, if the fans are amazing,
sure,
that makes the city of Milwaukee an amazing place.
Yeah, more appealing at least, you know.
Yeah, more appealing, right? So those are the factors you don't get to see till you in it, right? I don't get to find that out.
Yeah,
And I may talk to some players or whatever,
but it'd still be different for
I don't
you,
get to
right?
experience that myself until I decide that I'm traded there.
And that's a great point. I think that's one of the things we lose sight of as fans. Like one of the comments when I said like, well, Brad still has to uproot his family. They're like, well, Brad doesn't care about living in DC. He lives in LA in the summer anyway. Well, yeah, I mean, if I wouldn't mind having an LA house to live for 3 months out of the year, but he's still here and his family is still in that city for the majority of the year. And that's not inconsequential about picking your destination. Like, how much do things like we always hear like, well, maybe Houston or Miami are more appealing as destinations, like places that don't have certain taxes and things like that. As a player, are you really factoring that kind of thing in, or is it, I don't know, does it depend on like the player, I guess, like how much they prioritize?
If you consider taxes as a player, you do it anyway.
Yeah.
I did it. We all do it. What we do is get a little Florida address or
yeah, right.
address,
Yeah.
right, and make it our permanent residence. I'm hoping I'm not giving this game away. Make it your permanent residence.
We'll delete this one if somebody comes after us. We won't know what they're talking about.
Put your car with a Texas plate or Florida plate. Everything is there now, and that's how you do that. So tax wise, you don't, but a lot of players do live in Texas because of that.
Sure.
A lot of players live in Florida because of that, because it's not only the tax wise, it's nice places to live. You know?
Yeah.
But
warm weather.
That's wherever you decide you are in the summer.
Yeah.
The off season. You decide wherever. Most players don't make their main home where they're from in the off season. They make their main place in the off season to where they can do majority of their training. And where a lot of other players that play their sports are. Now I have where we can train together. I have someone to, steel sharpen steel.
Right. Yeah. You want those LA summer pickup runs and things like that.
Accessibility.
Yeah. Yeah. You're more Vegas, there are more guys popping up in Vegas and things like that. And it's it's close enough to LA and California to go hit the beach if you want to a little bit here and there, but these guys are still working year round. It's not like they're
right. Off season is the main thing. Still got to. Off season is all about being a better player than you came back the season before.
right. That's
So
the grind.
the main thing is more the main thing off season than it is on season
Mm-hmm.
during the season.
Yeah, that makes sense. The other thing being reported here too, and this has been something I think even like Brian Windhorst pointed out that Kristaps Porzingis opting in for his $36 million with Washington next season has become more likely. Under the old front office, the assumption that was that Porzingis would opt out and re-sign a long-term deal for lesser money to stay with the Wizards. Now, he may take the money now that comes with opting in and then try to hit free agency next year. I guess, what would you do if you were Porzingis? Would you take the 36 million and try it again next year, or would you say, "Hey, I just had a great year. I need to get a long-term deal here done no matter what," and someone could still trade me either way. I think I'm still team long-term deal if I were him.
I would opt out.
Yeah, I think
I would
that.
opt out. Get long. Listen, when it's deal time, it's deal time.
Mm-hmm.
When you did your job, you did your job.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, I'm not opting in now. For Zingas, maybe it depends on who's in his corner, who's talking to him. New GM that's putting the arms around him, saying you're the guy we're gonna build around, and give him one more year. And not every agent tells you the best option. They just give it to you and say, "What do you want to do?"
Mm-hmm.
But to me, Porzingis did his job.
Right. Yeah, he was as good as I think we could have reasonably expected.
You're not. I don't see a better Porzingis
I agree.
right now.
Yeah.
Right. So me knowing, hey, I did my job. I did what it takes to be able to get a new contract anywhere.
Sure.
I'm doing it.
I understand.
At least I'm testing the market.
Well, that's the thing. Like, unless there's no market there, then maybe you have to take it. But I
Right.
got to imagine someone will offer him $25 to $30 million a year for a couple of years. And if I'm him, yeah, where do I sign if that's the case?
Right. So it's not a time limit when you have to opt in and opt out, right?
I think there is. I just don't know what that date is off the top of my
But
head.
it definitely should be enough time to be able. They got to get in the. I mean, they got to give them enough time to test the market.
Yeah, it's like once free agency started or whatever, you have some time to see what your value would be with other teams. But I don't know what the cutoff date is off the top of my head. What do you think this means for Kuzma? To me, like the Porzingis one, maybe he's here, maybe they protect the asset and give him a long-term deal and think they could trade him anyway. I don't know. I feel like this is almost a done deal for Kuzma at this point. Like, if Brad's gone, do you want to give him $30 million a year to stay here at this point? I wouldn't.
If the writing's on the wall to me.
Yeah.
If Ted Leonsis is hiring restructured, monumental, literally,
Yeah,
he's restructuring everything.
yeah, I agree.
Kuzma's a great player. He's not incredible enough to build around.
Right.
Right. So to me, if it's going to be a restructuring time, let's restructure.
Yep. And they could still sign and trade him and get something back for doing it.
I have age. Now it's a young players league. It's time to get young players.
Yep.
It's time to be able to compete. What's the team right now that's the young players that we compete against that's out there that we can pattern our game after?
Mm-hmm.
Sacramento. All right, let's try to
Memphis.
Close enough to get close enough to a Sacramento type of game.
Yeah.
So close enough to try to run the Sacramento type of offense.
Mm-hmm.
But which is nothing but the Spurs offense for real. But it's a copycat league.
Yeah.
No matter how many GMs Ted get in there, they're going to pattern something after something that's already working.
Yeah, they've learned from people in other positions where teams are successful too.
Absolutely. They're not going to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
They just have more GM minds that have been there to do it better. That to me, that's one thing about it is if this doesn't work, you pretty much put the Avengers together.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, yeah, if you
Right?
blow this
If
one,
you put the Avengers together, right? You got a GM from the Clippers, a GM from OKC, one from the Hawks, and that was assistant at the at Golden State when they won 2 titles.
yeah. If you can't rebuild with that group, I don't know what you
Come
do.
on, man. Like only thing that can make them fall apart is ego.
Yeah.
But they work together. I mean, in a boardroom, think about draft time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he pretty much put the Avengers together.
Sure.
Now, if I know if I'm Linger, Winger,
Winger. Yeah.
Ringer, right? Michael Winger, that if I know I have that core group under me, I don't care about. I'll be honest, I don't care about. I may care about Porzingis.
Sure.
I don't care about under it. I hate to say it, I don't care about all the players I have now.
Yep.
I have the Avengers.
Yeah, they're not here long term. Those guys they're going to take care of that.
I now have the perfect group to restructure, something I never had. I would have to take all this weight and put it on myself.
Mm-hmm.
I have all these beautiful basketball GM minds,
yep.
right? Minds that we can build.
Yeah.
And it's the only way you would do that and structure that and as Ted would put that together is for that particular reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. You're not going to do that and then sit on your hands.
I do that sit in your hands and be tied up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Sure.
look at Miami. They took a whole lot of players that was pretty much out the league, no names,
mm-hmm.
and said, but this core fits. Golden State was the same thing. Steph wasn't a superstar before it was Golden State. Clay wasn't a superstar before Draymond definitely wasn't one.
Yeah, there's a reason they
A
fell where they
whole
fell
lot
in
of
the
role
draft.
players.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think with them, they're saying, let's try to get few really good players, and then a good dynamic of role players that we know who can work well together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. And I think fans, that's all we want at this point, right? Is like a bunch of dudes moving in the right direction, paddle in the same way. And are they fun and young and there's hope for the future? Like you give me that as a fan, I'll never complain.
But the only thing is when you do that,
mm-hmm.
you have to have a great leader.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, as a coach,
mm-hmm.
right? Because the only time those type of teams work when you have that right leader as a coach.
Yeah, like you push all the right buttons and
right, like a Mike Brown. Like when it's young players, or have somebody on the team like a Chris Paul. You better get Chris Paul ass over here if you want to get that. Like, you get what I'm saying?
No,
for youth. If we go for youth, you can coach the youth more like college players.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can coach somebody who's been in the NBA a while that's kind of so used to you can coach the youth just like the Phoenix Suns when they right? There was a lot of youth on the team.
You can dictate
so now
some stuff.
You can push them and mold them, create a mindset, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can talk to them a little more crazy.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah. And that crazy talk can actually push them further.
Mm-hmm.
Just like players when a lot of players always say this back in my day. They always say this. I wish when you get drafted, you want to go to Pop first.
Mm. Yeah, someone you're going to listen to, right? Like it's
somebody's going to just right. Somebody. So now, once you leave the Spurs, it don't matter where you go, because now
you've learned, yeah,
you already got instilled in you,
right.
And you don't want to go to Pop later.
Right.
You don't want to ever go to Pop last
sure.
later in your career.
That's when you want Mike D'Antoni at the end, where you don't have to practice.
Right, exactly. So right now, this could be the new situation where everybody that you can go to Pop first.
Yep, I like that. It's like interesting when the Sixers did the process and they took only young guys and they had no vets on the roster, and You don't see teams do that anymore. I think teams have learned their lesson that you need like a few old school vets to at least teach these guys good habits. And you mentioned like a Chris
Right.
Paul. It's got to be somebody that's got enough cachet that they'll listen to, but will teach them good habits and is okay being in a mentoring role. I thought like Vince Carter was really helpful for those young Hawks and Grizzlies teams because he was Vince Carter. Like they all, know and respect him, but he was telling them like, no, this is what you need to do. This is how hard you need to work. Paul Pierce here in Washington for a couple of years or for a year, I think
Mhm.
made a big difference for some of the younger guys.
You got to hurt feelings.
Yeah,
Young
right.
guys got to be straight up, more straight up and down to hurt feelings,
Mhm.
and they'll get more out of that,
Yep.
right?
That
Older
makes sense.
guys, by the time you say something that's good, they get sensitive about it. It's a fight,
Yeah, right.
right?
Yep.
It's true,
Yeah.
right? It's true, right? Because young guys come from a college situation where the coaches say anything to you,
Yeah, it's just some crazy shit. Yeah.
make you run through a wall.
Yeah.
Well, you can continue that,
Mhm.
but especially if they respect you as a vet, right?
Yeah.
And that you're giving them something that they never seen before, heard before, knowledge and teaching them,
Yeah.
right? You become a tough love mentor,
Mhm.
which is irreplaceable.
Was there a guy like that for you? Like when you first came in, that was the guy that kind of said, like, all right, young fella, here's how we do things.
It was, but he left too soon.
Okay.
It was Terry Davis.
Okay.
Terry Davis and I literally almost got in a fight in the locker room over
Right.
me trying to let a doctor shoot something in my knee so I can play the next game.
Wow. Okay.
I'm thinking he like, oh man, like I'm thinking he don't want me to play because I played behind him. We played
Sure.
the same position. He was like, you get that stuff shot in your knee, you won't play once that wears off, you won't play the next year.
Right. You don't want the
And
long
he was
term.
literally willing to fight me over it.
Yeah. Yeah. You need that, right? You need somebody to save you from yourself sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we were literally about to square off over that.
Yeah.
Him trying to save my career.
That's a good friend.
That's a good friend.
Yeah.
Love him to this day. Talk to him all the time.
That's great. Yeah.
Never have to question it.
Yep. Right. Exactly. This guy will tell me what I actually need to hear, not what he thinks I want to hear.
Now, he would make me listen.
Yep. Right.
Right?
Physically make me listen if I have to.
But that's how it goes though.
I, I I love that, and I hope that this front office keeps that in mind if this is a teardown. Of like, we still need some of those kind of guys. Like, that's actually what the team I would want a Taj Gibson on. Maybe less so this year's team where we needed him to play, and
Right.
put him on the team with the young fellas.
Man, tell you. Add Chris Paul to the roster, you got a players coach. That's undeniable.
Yep, I like that. There is a little bit of, I think, personally disappointing news. Wizards assistant coach Ryan Richmond, one of the young guys on the staff, is taking a job to be the head coach of the Seahorses Mikawa in Japan. And he's 30 years old. He was the coach of the Capital City Go-Go a couple years ago. Did a great job. Really good dude. Was huge for player development for people like Otto Porter, and sat in the gym with him every day, repping out jump shots. And also Mike Williams, the most recent coach of the Capital City Go-Go. Jahadi, when we did first media day with Mike when he got the job, his own players did not know he was only 25 years old. They thought he was like in his mid 30s because he was just like so mature and with it and already given head coaching job. And like there were a couple players on the team that were older than he was. And he's just like, he's a dude that will be an NBA head coach some point for sure. And he's leaving to go be an assistant coach for the Utah Jazz, which I'm happy for them. Maybe that's a
You said
move.
you were going to somewhere in
Oh, sorry.
China.
Two different guys left.
Okay.
Two different
All
former.
right.
Ryan Richmond, that was on the Wizard staff this year, used to be the Go-Go head coach. Mike Williams, that was the Go-Go head coach most recently, that replaced Ryan. They're both leaving. One is going to Japan to be a head coach. That's Ryan Richmond. Mike Williams is going to be Utah's assistant coach.
Okay.
So both guys I really liked. They're like, if either of them were head coaches in the NBA in 10 years, I would not be shocked. And I think they were like the two young bright spots on this front office staff. So now we've seen 4 assistant coaches leave. this offseason. So I haven't heard any news about who's replacing them or they're backfilling those jobs with, but I don't know. That would worry me a little bit if those weren't, these aren't guys they ran out because they were dead weight. You know what I mean? These are two young guys that are bright spots around the league. So I'm a little surprised to see them both leave in the same offseason.
Both of those guys were there before West became head coach, right?
Exactly. But that's what I wonder about too, is like, all right, we're not here. Like that, he's not our guy. We were Scott Brooks guys. We stayed here short term.
Coaches coach a different way. Every coach has a different philosophy of how they coach, right? Of how they, right? And it's almost who you came under, right? So even if they're great coaches and great with the players, if it's too many philosophies trying to go into one coaching scheme, it's everything clash and doesn't work together. Now, they might have great ones, great philosophies, but I can't.
They don't fit.
Completely put my philosophy out on the table and my system on the table, and then we could tweak my system. Fine.
Yeah, sure.
But if we disagreeing and we changing my system, now it's 3 or 4 systems existing in the same system. It's just a big catastrophe.
Yeah.
Right. And so if I'm the head coach and I'm not fully being able to get my system through, because no matter how much, when you process my system, you're going to regurgitate it in your system's way. Right. Just how your brain works. There's nothing wrong with the coach and nothing. It's just how they see the game. I can't train. I look at it like training. I can't train a point guard how to be Steph Curry, right? Because I have to teach him how to be more like an Allen Iverson, because I know more, been around Allen Iverson more, I know Allen Iverson, the way he played, right? So there's no way I can just go. I can look at film, look at some YouTube videos and try it, but
not a natural move.
My natural self, my natural understanding of a point guard, and the natural person I had to study every day would be Allen Iverson. So I have to teach that philosophy. Even if you teach me Steph Curry stuff, I'm gonna regurgitate it into Allen Iverson way. And so that's what's happening with the coaches, right? So now it had to be more coaches that pretty much understand the system he's running already. Now, okay, but now that I ran this system before, I can make the system better this way.
Sure.
I ran this system before, I can add this value to that system, right? So now it's just not a lot of like combating the catastrophe going on.
Yeah, both guys started like the video room, worked their way up. They were kind of like they both started at the University of Maryland, but then were lifers in their pro careers with the Wizards, and that's a great point. You start under one coach. They tried it for a couple years. Maybe that was their move. Maybe it was Wes's move. Maybe a little bit of both. But either way, really nice guys, both of them smart guys, and wish them both well here with their new roles. Jahadi, I think that's all I got for you here. Anything else?
No, that's it, man. Glad to see you again.
Yeah, absolutely. We got some more fun stuff coming here. It'll be the draft, and then we basically the week after that are free agency. So I think we'll got a loaded couple shows here coming up.
All right, let's do it.
All right, everybody. You know the drill. Rate, review, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we will catch you all next time.